Hello everyone, this is about Scarlett, a guitar project. I'm setting this guitar up as I write this. That said, I'm not a luthier. I have no woodworking or routing skills, no painting skills either. My electronics is primitive at best, but I can put a guitar together good enough for myself. I have enough experience to mod guitars to my liking, but it's not a billable skill. I watch luthier videos and I try to learn, but I am nowhere near that level, nor do I have the patience. What modding I do works for me, and it may also work for you, but it may not be the most ideal way. Having fixed my gas or guitar acquisition syndrome a couple of years ago, I no longer hang around online guitar markets to check out stuff. That's the guitar equivalent of a recovering alcoholic hanging in a bar every night. It's a kind of self-torture, and any day or night, sooner or later, no matter how strong we are, we will slide back. I had a spare set of Seymour Duncan 59 and JB pickups that I wanted to put on a cheap project guitar, perhaps a semi-hollow. But then I found this other guitar we're going to talk about. That's how it happens for me. I have an idea, and as I go ahead with that idea, one thing leads to another and another until one option becomes the one without doubt at the moment. Just a few warnings first. Modding guitars is never a good thing for resale value. We should only do it with a cheap guitar, or we actually have a musical career that can afford to do these things like Mr. Dan Auerbach, or we know that we will be keeping the guitar. That's just the reality of the guitar resale market. The moment we decide to change something in the guitar, no matter how expensive that improvement is, it's not going to bump the resale price anywhere near its original stock value, unless we find a rare customer who is actually interested in our mods. For me, the operative phrase in modding guitars is that we know what we're doing. We have an objective, we've done our research, we've done basically everything else to improve the guitar other than opening it up. Case in point, maybe we just have to raise the pickups for better tone, or we need to fiddle with a truss rod or saddles. Meaning, we've gone through everything besides opening up the guitar and removing something from it. And we have made up our minds that the mod is worth it in terms of cost and in violating the stock status of the guitar. We know that we are putting the resale value of this item at risk. And finally, that we have no regrets of taking this guitar to a point of no return, to a point that no one else can love it except ourselves. Which is a cautionary tale against modding expensive guitars. Did you just buy a custom shop and found out that you're not happy with it? Don't mod it. Sell it off and find a much cheaper guitar to mod. Once we mod a guitar, we better be prepared to keep it or sell it off at a much lower price. Modding a guitar will knock it off the market, unless our name is Clapton or Slash. Finally, setting up a guitar can be fairly complicated, but it can be made simpler if we understand some basic physics. A guitar is usually several kinds of wood bolted or glued together, with some metal parts and steel strings, and some more plastic and electronics here and there. That means even without touching it, a guitar is bound to warp in different ways due to temperature and humidity. And we don't have to be a genius in physics to know that wood and metal will warp differently due to these changes. And that warping can happen as quickly as transferring the guitar from a plane to a truck. Next, there are forces involved. The strings are in tension to be in tune. They compress the neck towards the body, and the neck is resisting this pull by its own wood and the truss rod inside it. If we have a wiggle stick or a whammy bar, something at the back is fighting the tension of the strings, so there's this tug of war happening that threatens to knock the guitar out of tune. Anywho, physics. That said, this is the guitar. It's a knockoff Strat for sure, which I got for less than $80, delivery included. I cannot imagine how it got to that price point, but I am from the demand side, so if the supply side is offering it at this price, I am buying. For the more observant viewers, you will notice a binding on the front face. This is not typical on a Strat. This is a feature of the Aerodyne models of Fender Japan. I won't go into the history of Fender Aerodyne models here, but they had a cool visual vibe because of the bindings. and some even went without a plastic pickguard. This was one of the many interesting fenders that were made in Japan. However, because of the binding, the front face is flatter than the usual Strat. The arm cut gets lost because they had to leave a flatter face for the binding to work. I had an Aerodyne once, the one without a pickguard, and it was okay, but beyond the visual cool, I had some other Strats that sounded better, so I had to let it go. This is a reality for us guitarists. Unfortunately, we buy with our eyes, me included, when tone and feel should be the priority. But I get it. We all want to look cool. Now, some initial observations on this guitar. It's metallic red with antique white binding, and the plastic for the pickguards, pickups, and knobs are pure white. The metallic red is tasteful, without big sparkles that make it look too disco. It's a Thomson, which is a local Filipino company. The fingerboard color looks quite even, so that may be wood that has been painted or stained over for an even color, or it's a great piece of ebony or some kind of wood, or it's synthetic. Whatever. For the price point, I'm not complaining. In my head, $80 is the cost of the guitar body and the metallic red paint job and the binding, and everything else is a bonus. The bonus items are the neck, tuners, nut, strings, trem, gig bag, and the little plastic which contains a basic guitar cable and 2 Allen wrenches for the saddles and truss rod. If we lived in a price point where this guitar exists, there will be no world hunger. Moving on, these are what I do when a guitar comes my way. First, I tune the guitar. That's as basic as we can get. With all the gadgets, apps, and doodads today that can tune a guitar, there's really no excuse to not tune a guitar properly. If we are beginners, we should learn how to tune the guitar one way or another, using a pedal, a tuner, or whatever. For me, that's Guitar 101. Tune the thing. Long ago, before all these gadgets were available, I would play a song on the cassette recorder which I knew the chord of, tune one string to match the song, then tune the rest of the strings to that one correct string. Now that it's way much easier, tuning should be the very first thing we need to do when picking up a guitar. As I tune the guitar, I usually get a Phillips screwdriver to tighten the tuner heads so that they're not loose. They also shouldn't be too tight, otherwise the heads won't turn. For a new guitar, we may have to tune the strings several times as the strings gain full tension. And then I do a short check on the action by pressing the string against the fretboard on the higher frets. Action is the distance between the strings and the fretboard, and the lower the action is, the easier it should be to play the guitar. And then I do a fret check by doing this. If all the notes ring out, then the frets are fairly level. If the notes choke, then a fret is higher than the one before it, and that is a problem. There are many possible causes to this. The frets are not level, the neck is bowed and may be fixed by tightening the truss rod, or the neck is warped. If we want the action to as low as we want it, the frets have to be level. Otherwise, we'll have to level the frets and adjust the saddles. I won't go into detail with this here. There are many good videos on how to do this. So tuners check, frets check, action check. I guess the strings are a set of 10s, probably the cheapest kind given the price point. Note that up to now I haven't jacked the guitar into the amp. I'm starting to suspect that someone did a setup on this because so many things are right. And then I check the bridge, particularly on how the bridge sits against the body. If it looks like this, then I can tell that the springs at the back are pulling too much, even without me opening the back plate. With the strings in tune, the back portion of the bridge sits lower, so that means the back springs are winning over the strings. And when I use the wiggle stick, it's fighting me, so that confirms further my theory that the springs at the back are all jacked up. The wiggle stick should respond with a gentle touch. We don't need to wrestle with the wiggle stick to make it work. I open up the guitar and my guess is right. The springs are back way up too much. So I loosen this up a bit, a little at a time, so that the two screws are more or less in line. This adds slack to the system, so I have to retune the guitar afterwards. But now the wiggle stick responds with a love tap. Just a little tip. Guitar adjustments work in millimeters. Said differently, the changes should always be subtle. If you look at these before and after pictures, the changes are very small, but there are changes. And then I fret the guitar somewhere on the high frets and check the pickup height, and they look good. They're not too low that they can't pick up the strings well enough, and not too high as to be touching the strings or restraining them magnetically. I've been lucky so far, everything works. So on to the main event on how this thing actually sounds. I'm using a Vox VT40X with semi-clean tone with a bit of reverb and delay. There's no better way to judge guitar tones than an A-B test, so we'll do this. I name my guitars and this one is named Scarlet. I'm going to compare this with one of my best sounding Strats, which is a 2005 Mexican Fender Strat named Consuela. Alright, let's do that properly this time. Consuela. From my best research, Consuela has ceramic pickups. I usually have two A-B tests for Strats. One is a semi-clean tone, and the other is what I call the even flow test. I use the semi-clean tone for the classic Strat honk, and the even flow test for the lows and for distortion. Just a disclaimer, I don't know even flow so well. I'm slow and my timing is not spot on, but the test works. Also, I'm doing some noodling afterwards to show you some more tones, but I lack practice, so no dissing please on the way I'm playing. I can do better, but I'm in a rush to get these videos out for you. Of course, I try to make sure I'm in tune. I'd imagined the semi-clean tone to be somewhat cleaner, but I was surprised that when I did chords, the dirt would show up. Anywho, the test works for the honks to show up in single notes and overdrive to be there while doing chords. Also, this is not scientific. The two guitars are different. They have different fretboards, and the strings and pickups are not the same. But we can clearly hear the tone difference between the two guitars. Also, a Strat has 5 tone settings. I'll just do positions 2 and 4, which are the tones with 2 pickups combined. All guitar volume and tone settings are maxed out, and the amp settings are identical for both guitars. There's also some hum running about. I can't figure out if it's a grounding or cable problem or something else, but hey, rock and roll. I hooked up a lavalier mic near the amp, jacked it into my Samsung A12 phone, used the camera of the phone for the video, took one video for all tracks. I just paused the recording to change guitars. On the video editor, I just spliced the tracks but no improvement on the audio. I have a few tricks with A-B comparisons. 1. The tracks cannot be so long that we get lulled into the tone. 2nd, the B track has to follow immediately because we don't want our viewers to be sliding the video back and forth. As humans, our retention of tone is very short, so A-B comparisons are best done one right after the other. If there is an interruption between A and B, like talking or some other music, we won't be able to compare. Since tone is subjective, I'll leave you to your own opinions, but I'll give my 2 cents at the end. As for me, there is no question. I like the tone of Consuela more. Like I said, she's hard to beat. I've pitted her against a 1979, a vintage in quotation marks, a Strat with Fender Custom Shop 65s, Tex-Mex, a Highway 1, Seymour Duncan Buckers masquerading as single coils, a Japanese Aerodyne, and a Japanese 88, and she still wins. She has the right balance of that sweet Strat honk, but when you push her, she's a screamer. She has gained this rep for years, and in playing her, I actually get distracted by how good she sounds. That said, Scarlett is not bad either. This was supposed to be a project guitar. To buy a cheap guitar and mod it to a much better guitar. As an example, this is the trem block of Scarlett. In comparison, this is the real Fender USA trem block. Yes, there will be differences in tone and tuning stability. But from initial inspection, I cannot find anything glaringly bad that I feel the need to change it. Yes, the tuners are a bit temperamental and the pickups are obviously not Fender Custom Shop 65s, but I see nothing wrong with Scarlett. Which makes this guitar project a dismal failure because there's nothing bad with Scarlett that I need to open her up right away. In conclusion, I am both disappointed and happy. I am disappointed because I thought I would be spending weeks, even months, modding a crappy guitar and making it sound great. What I anticipated as a project where I'd be spending days upon days modding pickups and hardware has ended up in just a day of setting up Scarlett. But I am also happy, considering myself quite lucky to fall upon a great find that has no serious issues at all. She has honk, and she has her own thing when pushed. I'm keeping her that way. Now this situation is just for now. Who knows, as I keep playing Scarlett, maybe I will find something that justifies a mod. But hey, I'm not crazy to force the issue right now. As they say, do no harm. If it doesn't improve, keep it status quo. Which brings us to the messages of this video. Yes, there will always be a better guitar out there, but unless it is really a handicap, let us learn to play with what we have. The search for tone is noble, but practice and playing matters more. Second, today is the best day to go out and buy a guitar if you're starting out. As Scarlett has shown, the cheap guitars today are quite frankly unbelievable. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again on the next video.